Hi, I'm Virginia. And I'm Bianca. And we're going to talk about underrated noir. Now,
Woo!
anything you want to say about noir?
Well, it's one of our favorite genres, along with the war film and westerns. A lot of people, I guess, are shocked to hear that.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially, we're millennials, by the way, and every time I mention to people my age, like, I'm saying, like, when I mention, like, a western or something, they're like, wait, what? You watch westerns? Like, is that a thing? Like, people today know these things exist? Like, I've met people who've never, ever seen one. Can you believe that? Like, not even, like, a parody of
There
one.
was a time when we were like that, but we were very young then.
We were young, yes.
And then we turned 15 and we're like...
yeah. But, yeah, with the film noir, anything that you want to say, like...
Well, a lot of our favorite actors are great film noir. As you could tell from the Underrated Actors blog, I spotlight a lot of actors of noir, like Charles McGraw, Steve Brody, William Tallman.
Yeah, and also I think that, like, with film noir, I think it's because they age surprisingly well. Like, it doesn't take a lot of,
They're
like...
violent, but not in a gross way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't take a lot of easing into classic films to get into them.
No.
Some are more accessible than others, and we're probably going to be talking about some of the less accessible ones, like the ones that you probably should be more familiar with films to get to watch, but we do recommend them.
If you're a noir fan.
Yeah. What do you and do you remember what our first noir was?
Oh god, that was so long ago. Maybe Double Indemnity.
That's what I was thinking.
I think I actually saw Postman Noir Strings twice first, but I saw it by myself, and then we together watched Double Indemnity. Yeah,
that could be it. And just for the record, we should probably tell them what our favorite noir is, because we share it. It's what we tend... I do want to mention off the bat, just so people think, while we are identical twins, we do tend not to share the same
we have different favorite actors, favorite movies.
But with noir, it tends... for some reason, we share the same... Well, we also share the same favorite war movie, too.
Want to say on the count of three?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Laura! Since we're talking about underrated noir, we're not going to be talking about Laura, because everybody knows Laura's, like, the best... one of the best noirs. It's, like, in the top 5 best noirs ever made, and no one's going to dispute that, I don't think, so we're not going to talk about it, but just so you know, that's, to us, that's the pinnacle, like, as far as our personal tastes go, that is the high bar of noir. That's as good as it gets. It doesn't get any better than that. We have yet to see one that we like better than that.
We saw one that came pretty damn close, but not better.
Yeah, we saw ones that we obviously love to death and we'll watch them a million times, but Laura is definitely the one that I will go back and rewatch the most.
Yeah,
it's definitely the one that sticks with me the most, and I think it has... like, just the overall feel, to me, it best exemplifies what a noir is. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's some of the best on-screen chemistry of all time, along with Gilda.
Yeah.
But it's...
Oh, maybe Gilda was our first noir.
Oh, wait, yeah, that actually
that could have been.
Never mind. I think it was Gilda. I saw that, like, before. I didn't even know who Glenn Ford was when I first saw it. That's how long ago it was.
No, I remember.
I was a very young teenager.
I remember when I saw it, we watched it. I saw it for the first time. We watched it with our grandmother. You saw it before that, but I remember Grandma talking about how great Glenn Ford was and stuff. But I remember you telling me, saying, "Oh yeah, the plot is weird. Like, you're like I don't think you're gonna really know what's like. You're not gonna always know what's going on."
To noir.
That also shows it was probably our first, because we were obviously unaware of how these plots work. Because when I see Gilda now, to me the plot is typical noir. Like, it's not like...
there's nothing, like, wrong with it compared to other
No,
noirs.
it's not like The Big Sleep, where you are generally confused. It's not, like, with Gilda, like, obviously the narrative is a little flawed, but it's not... To me, it's really easy to follow.
It really doesn't work against the film.
No, I don't think so.
Obviously.
No, I don't think... Well, I think that's the great thing with noir, is that
it
doesn't always
make sense.
No, even the best noirs don't always make sense.
No. Well, obviously The Big Sleep is one of the greatest noirs of all time.
Yeah. Although that's probably why Laura works so well, is because it does make sense.
Makes complete sense. There's nothing in it that confuses you.
Even though it has these things that, like, when it happened, like, on your typical day, it's still, like, it's an easy to follow plot, and it has shocking moments and all that.
We were very young when we first saw that too.
Oh yeah, It was a snow day, I remember. That's how young we were. We had a snow day that day.
I saw The Major and the Minor the first time on that day, too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, good day.
That's a good day.
Well, we wrote down some of our favorite underrated noirs, ones that we both selected. So, first one we're going to start with, and these are kind of in chronological order.
Yeah.
First one we're going to start with is Cornered.
One
of our favorite tough guys.
1945.
Yeah. Dick Powell is one of our favorite tough guys.
Oh, yes. And I think and Cornered is like one of the first ones after Murder My Sweet. It might be the first one. It was
the first one.
The first one. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
It was the first one he did after Murder My Sweet. And it continues that, like, sort of almost violent streak.
It's very violent for the time.
Yeah, especially, like, but it eases you into the violence. It's not like it starts right with violence. Like, the climax is, it's
the kind of violence you don't see.
Yeah, in the climax, most of it's done off screen, but I think it's one of the most violent things at the time because is what it insinuates is going on. And to me, Cornered is the type of film that I recommend sticking to the end because the climax is so worth it. It's so worth it.
Like, every time I think of the movie, the first thing I think of is the climax.
Me too.
It has a lot of fun, hard-boiled dialogue, like they all do, that Dick Powell excels at.
Yeah. And, like, the scenes I just always remember the scenes, like, with Dick Powell and Walter Slezak. Yeah. Just when they're talking to each other because they have, like, it's the type of performances both actors, are really good at doing, you know, because they always play those type of parts where they're both, like, Dick Powell's a tough guy and Walter Slezak is, like, the sort of slimy but also at the same time interesting type of villain.
It's kind of like Wally Ford in The Breaking Point, like that.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. It's
we refer to Wally Ford as Wally. We have nicknames for actors.
Yeah.
You might hear some of them.
Yeah, but yeah, Dick Powell is one of our favorite tough guys.
Yeah, I think what he does with dialogue is something nobody else really did quite as well.
Yeah,
it's so much fun to watch. I just marvel in it.
I think that a lot of the best noir tough guys are the ones that
you don't expect.
Yeah, because a lot of the great noir actors, I think that Dick Powell and John Payne are two of the most the toughest, yet they started off films as musical stars. So I think that adds to their appeal is that they have that soft side, but yet they're two of the most violent and toughest guys in noir.
And you can see them in a romantic mold. Like, they're not going to be the kind of guys that hit ladies.
They're not that type.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, they do have a romantic.
They're tough but agreeable, but yet they're anti-heroes at the same time. Yeah. And Dick Powell definitely moves, like, his motives are understandable and Cornered, like, they're very understandable, absolutely. But yet he definitely crosses some moral gray areas.
He crosses some lines, and then in the end he realizes
that he's crossed some lines. Of course, But that's what makes him human, and I think that's what makes him Dick Powell just work so well, because he is really good at playing parts like that, like guys who definitely, like, you see where they're coming from and you're with them every step of the way, but yet they do things that you're like, whoa, that was kind of tough. Yeah,
like, that was cool, but that was also kind of tough.
Yeah, that definitely.
Well, let's go to the next one. Okay, the next one is Crack Up, 1946.
All right.
Pat O'Brien,
Claire Trevor. Yeah, it's definitely. So, what I found interesting with this one is the way it was filmed.
I think it's like a Twilight Zone episode.
Oh yeah, it definitely is like a Twilight Zone episode. It's kind of like
it establishes the characters, and then, like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, it's definitely like that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Rod Serling saw this and was like, I think I could work with this.
And this one really keeps you guessing, like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, to me, what makes this one stick out is because throughout the whole thing, I really wanted to know what was going on.
I had no idea what was. I'm not. This is so predictable. I
didn't know where it was going, because, I mean, and also because I don't want to spoil. We're not going to spoil endings or anything, but
obviously, some of the best parts.
But it's also psychological, because, like, you're wondering, is he nuts? Like, or did this happen? But, like, am I nuts? Because I saw it too.
This is really great psychological.
Yeah, horror. But yeah, like you said, it keeps you guessing, because I was like, I wanted to scream, what is going on? But in a good way.
What's real, what's not real.
Yeah. But like I said, in a good way, because there are movies that, like, will have me, like, saying what is going on, but obviously I'll be like, I won't be with the movie because I'll be so frustrated. I don't know what's going on. But with this, it generally presents it like a mystery, so you are really interested.
And they'll answer it by the end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you're not, like... And you're confused, but in a way, because I think it's also because the main character is equally confused. Yeah, I think that's because that's why it works.
The other characters are trying to find out just as much as we are. All the three main characters are trying to figure this out.
Because all the characters are like, "Wait, what happened?" Type of thing. What happened to you?
And one of the rare times Claire Trevor plays a good girl.
Yeah, definitely.
And obviously, she's one of the best femme fatales, but she proves that she can be a really reliable presence in these kind of films too. Yeah. A strong, intelligent woman.
Yeah, everybody's kind of cast against type in this movie.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And
Herbert Marshall is too. Yeah.
And he's a very underrated noir actor because he made a lot. I mean, he's underrated in general, I think, but a lot of old movie fans obviously know him because he's in so many great movies. But not a lot of people talk about his film noirs because they in themselves are underrated. We're going to talk about some of them, but he is wonderful in them.
Oh yeah.
You think of him as like this comedic actor because of Trouble in Paradise and The Good Fairy and things like that. But this is, but he really had a knack for this genre, I think. Yeah,
I agree with that. And he was always in a supporting part, but he always played memorable supporting parts. You know, he played he always played really good parts, like definitely parts that stick with you after the film's over.
Like parts that the filmmakers, like, it's like they knew they were casting. They're like, well, nobody's gonna, let's really play with his character, like this typecasting.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and because we don't want to spoil more Crack Up because it's definitely one that we recommend going in pretty blind. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we only have one foreign noir in here. It's a British one. We're not really going to talk about noirs because it's mainly an American genre. It's one that was inspired by foreign films, but it created mainly in America.
And obviously, I think neo-noirs are largely foreign genre, but I think the noir, classic noir is very Hollywood.
But we're going to be talking about one British one that's a lot like American films, and it's an equally good cast like American films. It's They Made Me a Fugitive with Trevor Howard.
Now this one might be known pretty well across the pond, but
but we don't. But as far as we're concerned here, it's pretty unknown.
I have yet to see a lot of people talk about this one over here because it's one that people who see it like a lot, and they'll
what's there not to like?
They'll praise it to high heaven. But I mean, like, but not a lot of people here have seen this one, and that is frustrating because it's a really good movie.
It's very dark, very gritty, very violent.
It gets away with more than a Hollywood film does,
but yet not in a
we don't mean that way. We don't mean that. There's nothing gross in this movie.
It's just forbidden, like any good noir is.
But it's very bitter, but it's not bitter in a way that it turns you off, and it never goes down like. It keeps the bitter tone throughout. It never, like, has this moment where that seems out of place, where it, like, gets cheery for a second.
They don't have comic relief in this one.
No, they don't.
A lot of British movies do.
Yeah, and a lot of British noirs kind of do. Like, not all of them, but some of them will kind of have a wisecracking character or, like, a witty side character. There's nothing like that in this movie.
There's wisecracks, but they in themselves
are bitter. Yeah. Like, Trevor Howard has a few, but he's
like how he's always like, oh, yammer.
Yeah. And let's talk about Griffith Jones. Yeah, he's psychotic in this movie.
He has never been better. You think of him in these little comedies like First a Girl, Miranda. And he is crazy in this. It's like a Richard Widmark sort of character. I mean, not quite there, but close.
I always remember, like, there's the scenes, like, where he's talking to Sally, and he's like...
Sally Gray,
sorry, and he's like, oh, Loverboy's coming. He's like, his eyes are, like, really big, and he's, like, laughing, and it's like, oh my god.
I know. What is going on? You can go to the devil. Like, he just is very, very angry.
Yeah. But... And obviously the way it's filmed and the way it's edited.
Wonderfully. I mean, I felt like I was watching an American noir with a British cast.
But I also think what's interesting with this film is that there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the movie, but nothing that's like that you're like, well, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, no,
it sticks.
You're with it the whole way.
Yeah, like when, because the film is like Trevor Howard gets arrested.
It's for some clearing the name.
Clearing the name plots, yeah, and he obviously escapes from prison, and he is on the run. But while some of these movies, and I guess England seems to be better with this than we are here. Like, because yes, that is what I was thinking. Because they're better at being a little like they can't be. There are obviously things that aren't going to happen every day, but they're easier to bite and easier to buy than a lot of times when we tackle this sort of thing. Because I think. Because obviously a lot of the stuff that happens to Trevor in this movie is bad luck, like being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it's not to the point
Putting
where
your faith in the wrong people.
Exactly, but it's not to the point where you're like, okay, well now you've crossed the line and now it's a little too far. It doesn't go down that road, and I think it's because it holds the same tone throughout, so it's easier. It's just easier to buy because you're like, well, you've already sort of established that this is like the type of underground world we're occupying, so I think it's easier to follow.
It's really the updated gangster movie.
Oh yeah, it definitely is, and
which a lot of noir is.
Yeah, except it has like the crazy noir killer type of character. It's like the British version of Neville Brandon DOA, because he's like the giggling type totally. Of
Well, like I said, Richard Widmark.
Sadistic, yeah, exactly, like a Richard Widmark character. It definitely, if this movie was in America, Griffith Jones would be played by Richard Widmark.
I'd watch that. He's one of my favorite actors, by the way. If you didn't know that. All right, let's get to the next one. There's a lot of little Anthony Mann films, so we're going to group them all together because he did a lot of underrated noirs and
some more better known than others, but we think that they all, like, pretty much almost all of them are worth talking about.
They're as good as they get.
Yeah, he's one of the best noir directors of them all.
And he had John Alton, the greatest cinematographer of all time.
And he did it because I think when a lot of people think of noirs, they think of like B movies.
Yeah.
And to me, as far as like the B movies went, you know, Anthony Mann was probably the greatest film noir B movie director.
And they're really independents almost, not even really not what we quintessentially call Bs. They're not like the little Paramount films or Columbia, although I mean Anthony Mann, they're independently produced.
Yeah, most of them are, because obviously they got more high class as they went along.
And some of the later ones we talk about with him, they're going to be done. We're going to get to an MGM one, but first let's start with the first real essential Anthony Mann film, Desperate, with Steve Brody.
Yes,
and a young Raymond Burr, and probably the first time he was really Raymond Burr, the screen persona,
definitely,
not Perry Mason, at all.
I think that Anthony Mann definitely seemed to make all these classic noir actors come into their own, like really Steve Brody
them. And he really used people like John Ireland. He really made him into a noir name. He saw Dennis O'Keefe and used him against type, and it was wonderful.
Anthony Mann was the king of casting people against type and making
and
it
then
work.
It worked,
and then that became their type.
Yeah, exactly.
And like what he did with Jimmy
he discovered
Stewart.
A lot of people too. So with Desperate, it's again kind of like a man on the run film, not a man trying to clear his name, a man on the run. Although he is kind of clearing his name as well. But what makes
he's being framed kind of simultaneously.
But what makes this film so good is just how scary the villains are. You always feel like they're there, and they're watching him.
To me, the heroes are easy to root for. They're not to the point where they're like overly coy or overly they're very easy to root for because
they're very relatable.
Yeah, they're relatable, not to the point where they're boring, but they're relatable to the point where you do want to see them have a happy ending, and you do want
they have a happy life until they come and ruin
it. Because you also think like, if these guys were chasing me, I'd be terrified too. I'd run away too. Because they are scary, these villains in this movie. But they're not scary. They're scary in like the noir scary type of way. They're heavies, and they're your classic
like William Bendix and the Glass Key sort of scary.
Definitely like that. Where it's
very Raymond Burr.
More to the point of their sadism and the lengths they're willing to go, more so than them
and
being
just
like
the defenselessness.
Yeah, they're not really like the Richard Widmark type of character. They're not like the giggling maniac type of character that we were just talking about. They're more grounded. They're a bit more I would say, like, how would you say that? Like, they're a bit more
I mean, sadists.
Yeah, they're sadists, but not in like a giggling psychopathy kind of way.
It's like they're born to be bad, you know.
They
just have to. No matter what, they're not gonna change. That's the way they are.
Like, this is just what they grew up into and how they're gonna stay.
Again, the updated gangster, the kind of characters you'd see James Cagney or Richard Robinson play, but even much darker.
Yeah, the darker noir way of dealing with that.
I mean, the next Anthony Mann one we'll talk about is Railroaded. Another small little one, and this one has an interesting, like, I guess when a lot of people, they don't think of Hugh Beaumont being in films like these. He made quite a bit of noirs, a lot of B ones.
A lot of Bs,
A lot of them aren't very good. This is a good one.
This might be the best one he did.
Yeah. And this one really got John Ireland out there. And
as
he's,
the villain.
Yeah, and obviously he's a wonderful villain, like he always is. Yeah. And it's a clearing name thing, except it's not a main character who's trying to clear it. It's it's the brother that Hugh Beaumont's trying to help, and yet he's not sure in himself, but they get caught up with gangsters.
Yeah, like, we the audience know, but he doesn't. And it's also...
It's Sheila Ryan's brother, by the way. I didn't say that. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, but...
It's not Hugh Beaumont's brother, it's Sheila Ryan's.
Sheila Ryan's, who he has a crush on.
It's cute, actually.
But yeah, it's her brother, and... What I also think is interesting with this one is the way it portrays cops, because they're, you understand that definitely why this guy would be a suspect, because you would naturally think that if you didn't
Mystery Street,
see the
like,
beginning. It's a lot like that. Where he's definitely the most believable option if you weren't there, like, and especially since Jane Randolph is like, oh yeah, he was there. Like, they have eyewitness testimony that he was there.
Even though she's working
she's
John Ireland's girlfriend.
Which no one knows. But and I think that the way it portrays the cops, because
they're not all knowing, they make mistakes,
and also, like, the movie basically acknowledges that some of their tactics are bad and don't work, and that they're willing to go to lengths just to settle a case, not really get justice. Like, that's kind of, it's a small, the movie doesn't dwell on that. It's not like that's like a big plot of the film or a big message it's trying to get across, like a lot of noirs did at the time, but it is, like, hinted at, and it is something that's kind of touched upon. Like, I remember we're introduced to Sheila Ryan's character, where she's complaining about a film she saw, where she says that she doesn't like the cops in the movie. She says they push people around, and
she thinks they're doing the same thing, because obviously she's her brother's the victim.
It is what they're doing.
Her brother's the victim. You don't blame her for thinking that.
They do kind of do that to him, though. They're kind of pushing him around a little bit, and so, I mean, it doesn't portray cops as it has that kind of noir opinion on cops that some of, obviously, that whole, like, bad apple type of mentality that it doesn't portray all cops like that, but there are some cops that you're like, that do some dirty tricks.
There's also a great climax in the nightclub with all the lights out, very force of evil.
And this one is less talked about than his other ones, and I think it's because it doesn't, like,
it's simpler than the other ones.
I think it's also because, there's not, like, a dick pal or something in this one.
That's probably
so it doesn't have, like, a wide video release or anything. So but it's definitely worth checking out.
And the next Anthony Mann one is T-Men, which is probably the best one out of the lot.
And it's probably his most famous one out of all the B noirs he did.
Virginia and I quote this one all the time. Actually, there's a lot of great dialogue in this. A lot of just great scenes. There's the scene in the sauna. We won't reveal too much, but you're not gonna want to go in a sauna again.
there are two death scenes in this, I'll just say.
And they're both great.
I'm never gonna forget them for as long as I live. I'm gonna remember them.
And one of our favorite noir actors, Charles McGraw, is in it, and this is the first time
he got to be Charles McGraw.
Exactly. And with that wonderful voice of his, and he's really the most sinister of all the villains, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Like, one of the most famous scenes in the movie, he's torturing Dennis O'Keefe, and that's like how we're introduced to Charles McGraw. Like, that's not his first scene in the movie, but this is like what people remembered about Charles McGraw. It's like, he's the guy who tortured Dennis O'Keefe. Like,
and Dennis O'Keefe is the good guy in this.
Yep.
And we think he's a great tough guy. That's not said nearly enough. Dennis O'Keefe is a great tough guy.
This was definitely his genre.
Yeah.
The genre he should have been doing more often.
And he did, but a lot of them aren't as well known as this one. Well, you can't. It's really hard to compete with this one, I think.
It is. This is, as far as B noirs go, and as far as the semi-documentary noir goes, this is as good as it gets.
This was done at Eagle Line, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Which did a lot of great noirs, because he also did He Walked by Night.
Yep.
And
which, man, kind of directed, not really,
but allegedly.
Allegedly.
This film was also done in a like semi-documentary style, which is always a lot of fun to see in noirs. And Anthony Mann is quite good at that, because he Walked by Night does that too.
Yeah, definitely. And just because I think, as far as the semi-documentary goes, this is the most gritty one out of all of them. Like how we were saying, the dialogue, it just like it
punches you in the face.
Yeah, it does. And we mean that in the best way possible.
No. real good stuff. And well, the next one we're going to talk about is He Walked by Night. So we were kind of already talking about this, but
this one's been getting rediscovered lately.
Yeah, it really
I'm
has.
really happy.
We're going to put this with Anthony Mann, even though he's not credited on this. Alfred Worker, I believe it is.
Yes. Yeah. It was Worker. Yeah.
And it's John Alton, like who, like the Anthony Mann ones we've been discussing.
One of John Alton's best-looking films.
Absolutely.
It's probably his best-looking one after The Big Combo, and that's saying
I think so. This and Raw Deal and The Big Combo really are John Alton at his best.
I think that, I mean, the scene in the sewer at the climax is so good-looking.
I know.
But it's also...
And the third man, we're looking at you.
Yeah,
did
exactly.
You see this?
I think they did. But also the way... we got to talk about Richard Basehart in this movie, because he is really good.
One of the underrated actors.
Yeah. Gypsy's favorite actor.
Mystery Science Theater people.
We had to reference it.
Of course, yeah. No, it was bound to happen.
But I mean, he plays he plays the killer in this movie, and he plays him so. It's like one of the early performances of like the quiet, reserved, but resourceful killer in a film.
This is the kind of thing Richard Basehart does very well.
Yes, definitely.
The kind of part he was born to play.
I agree. I think that his career should have been made up of parts like this.
Yeah, this in like 14 hours, obviously.
Yes.
Because you feel bad for him almost, because he wasn't born this way.
And it was based off real life
real
events.
person.
Yeah, so it has a semi-documentary format, and it has it gives him like a backstory, so something you can understand, because he wasn't always like this, because of the war, and it does. And again, Basehart plays him like, not like he is like a psychopath. He plays him just like quiet, calm, very like, one step ahead of everyone else. Yeah, he's smart. That's another quality of him. He really knows electronics. Which helps him determine who he is. And we should also mention this was the inspiration for Dragnet, because Jack Webb's in this. And the semi-documentary
yes,
format,
of course.
obviously,
Yeah, and the narration's very Dragnet-y.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not exactly, obviously.
No. But it doesn't end with the Dragnet, like, close.
No.
Closure,
But clearly was the inspiration. Yeah. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is another Dennis O'Keefe one, Raw Deal, which also has Marsha Hunt, Claire Trevor, and Raymond Burr. Oh, and John Ireland.
Ireland. When I wrote my Anthony Mann blog post, I said this is sort of like the Anthony Mann like all-star type
it really
of thing, because
is.
it's like all these actors Anthony Mann like sort of define together,
Yeah. And one of my favorite actresses, Marsha Hunt, kind of playing
very
with type and
part.
Against type. It's a lot of fun seeing
what
this.
I think is interesting is like the good girl, bad girl, Betty Veronica type of thing.
That switch.
Yeah, it's very gray, because it looks like right when you start the movie, you're like, oh,
I know these girls.
Yeah, I know these girls. It's gonna be like this. I've seen this movie, but it doesn't do that. It does like Claire Trevor seems like the bad girl because she's like the mall type of girl, but who's Dennis O'Keefe's girlfriend, even though he has the hots for Marsha in this movie, but she's interesting because she's not like this sort of like bitchy like, oh well he like type of girl like that you think she's gonna be. She's a little like, she definitely, you
understand her. I mean, she goes through all this trouble for him, then she has to stand there while he falls in love with someone else.
And what I also find interesting with this movie is how like the good girl is sometimes like sort of the, and I don't agree with this, but I always read about it, how people call her the more boring one out of the two, but that's not the case at all in this movie, and especially in this movie, you can't make that argument at all, because
they're both just as
they're
interesting.
Both, and also because Marsha Hunt's character in this movie, because at first you think, oh, she's like the good girl, but then she does things in this movie where she realizes that she's willing to go to certain lengths
because she loves Dennis O'Keefe. She's willing, like, she understands now. Claire Trevor does all these bad things because she loves Dennis O'Keefe. That's what drives them.
Yeah, their love for Dennis O'Keefe. And the climax is good too. I just want to say that.
Let's throw that out there. Okay, so let's get to the final Anthony Mann one, which was done at MGM.
We have two more. Actually.
Oh wait, do we?
Border Incident and Tall Target.
Oh yeah, okay, that's on the other side of the paper we're looking at. Okay, so first of the two other Anthony Mann ones was done at MGM. Both of them were actually. This one's Border Incident with Ricardo Montalban and George Murphy.
And Charles McGraw.
Oh yeah, Doy. The Doy.
Okay, so this one is violent.
Yeah.
And it's
so ahead of its time.
Oh yeah.
With like so many different things. It's not one of those romantic noirs. It's really just gritty. It's not glamorous at all.
And its themes are contemporary. You would think that a film this politically charged would date the film, but it is still as relevant as ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Dory Shear had something to do with this. It's very Dory. And you wouldn't believe this came from MGM, which can be said for a lot of noirs that MGM did, because they're actually very good at it. It's not set enough. They could be gritty, especially under Dory's guidance. But this one is just, it doesn't feel like it's any studio. It feels like it's one of Anthony Mann's independent films, but with MGM actors.
And MGM production values.
Yeah.
Because these
big
production values are definitely good looking.
On location footage. And there's this one death scene we're not gonna give away, but you have to see this, and you will know it when you see it. I can never. It's one of those things that you can never forget.
That's what Anthony Mann does. He just does a death scene you're not gonna, you're never gonna forget it. And
Charles McGraw is again as slimiest along with T-Man is this.
And Howard Da Silva too is the other bad guy.
Yeah.
Obviously a big noir bad guy, and he's that's the type of part he was born to play.
Oh yeah.
And I also like this film opens with a bang and it closes with one too. The climax is really exciting.
It's never boring.
Nope,
never.
No, I agree. It's
we should also mention James Mitchell's in it too. And he's in a lot of interesting films. He can make a musical. He can make a western.
He always played these like interesting characters too. And he plays an interesting character in this.
One hell of a dancer too, my weird. So yeah, this is I recommend this, definitely. Me too. Obviously I recommend all these, but this one is just one of a kind.
Yeah, this is one that if you see it on TV, watch it.
Yeah, please.
Please do. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Watch it.
And speaking of one of a kind, we get to The Tall Target, which is a period noir with, again, the wonderful Dick Powell.
Yeah. Dick Powell with Anthony Mann. Now, what is better than that?
It's a match made in heaven.
It is. It's
like Preminger and Dana Andrews.
I remember after I saw this one, I said to you, I said to you, that one was dope.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Because we both watched it, but we watched it separately. And we both loved it, obviously.
I remember when we met up again and we were talking about it, we immediately had to talk about it. We had to talk about the Tall Target because we're like, how was it? Didn't you love the Tall Target?
And it takes place before the Civil War. You would not expect and it takes place on a train, a la like The Lady Vanishes almost, about an assassination plot against Lincoln, and we don't know who on the train.
We should mention Dick Powell's name in this movie.
You want to say
his name is John Kennedy?
Yeah, isn't that funny? So
Leif Erikson says at one part, well, there are a lot of guys named John Kennedy.
Yeah, and he says, I guess there could be 2 John Kennedys. I'm like, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that's what he says.
But this one is just, you never really know where it's going. And
yeah, it has some surprises.
It really does. Yeah. And you wouldn't expect a noir to take place at this time, but it's just like any other noir, really.
And we, I think, need to give a special mention to Ruby Dee.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's just, she is great in this movie.
Really
plays such an interesting part,
oh my god, yeah.
Because she plays a slave in this movie, and
she's treated like family, but obviously she's not.
Yeah.
But of course, the people who own her wouldn't think of that, because they're like, "Oh, we're nice to you. What more do you want? Maybe her freedom."
Yeah. But I like and again, like, that sort of ignorance it plays, like, in it, like, in this relationship is interesting.
Yeah.
And it's because there's so many layers to her
all the
character and all the characters, how they play off each other.
But in the end, she helps Dick Powell, and so do other people, because they understand.
Yeah. Most, and I think that
there's character development. Thank goodness.
Like, I think that in all these so many period films, every time there's a character that's a slave, you're like, oh boy, how is it gonna portray this? I mean, yeah. But this is one of the best.
Well, obviously, since they're trying to save Lincoln,
yeah,
I guess we can. I think this is safe.
Yeah. But this one has one of the best portrayals of how.
Oh yeah, definitely.
How she wants her freedom, and how it does a good job at showing, how she's willing to fight for that.
And there's one part where they say, well, if you want it so much, why didn't you ask for it? And she said, freedom shouldn't be something I should ask for. It should be something I was born with.
And, like, she's gonna ask for
I know!
It. Yeah. Like, yeah.
So, yeah, it's really ahead of its time, noir.
And it has all these interesting aspects to it, and it's exciting. It's
my
so
god,
exciting.
It's on a train. I mean, there's nowhere to run on a train.
Yeah. And there's also there's also some cool death scenes in this one.
Yeah,
I want to mention. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, a lot of surprises in this one too.
Yeah, good fun.
Definitely a good one.
When we talk about underrated noirs, we always mention the next one, The Gangster from 1947 with Barry Sullivan.
And I want to say off the bat that we do think, right, Barry Sullivan's an underrated actor.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'm going to be doing a blog post about him soon, obviously, because
one of the reasons why I think I like him so much is because he reminds me of Franchot Tone.
Yeah.
Like, the way he, like, just his sort of, like, laid-back type of natural acting chops, it reminds me of him.
And he always plays such interesting characters, and he really does right by them.
Yes, and, so I also think that, this movie, and I mentioned this to you, it reminds me of Les Samurai, Jean-Pierre Melville's 1967 classic with Alan Dillon, and his character reminds me of it. And I wouldn't be surprised, obviously Melville was heavily inspired by old noir, because it kind of, his whole career is neo-noir. And I wouldn't be surprised if he saw this film, because the way it opens,
the characters are introduced.
Yeah, the way the characters are introduced, and the way they and just the way they naturally are, because they're both these actors they're both these characters that do bad things, but they're also very stoic, and their lives are dull, and
it's such a depressing existence these characters have.
It's almost nihilistic.
It really is. But don't get me wrong, this film's still exciting, but it really develops this character, and it really ends with a bang with him.
Oh yeah, the ending is, I think, one of the best endings in noir. I would go so far to say that. I think it's up there. Yeah. Because I will never forget it. It's so, and the way it's done is so amazing.
It's so poetic. There's a lot of poetic dialogue in this that really hits you. Like, there's this one part with John Ireland in the restaurant. They say, oh, I think everybody needs someone. And you see him with his wife, because she's always waiting
always
for
there,
him, always there, even
looking for him.
Because it's just what she's gotta do.
Even though he's scum,
but she loves him.
Yeah. And I think this film is pretty deep, but it's also, so I feel like some people who are looking more for like a T-Men type of thing,
border incident
will be like, well, where's all the action? Because it is definitely more of a character study. Like you said, there are exciting
kind
moments.
Of psychological too.
But it's definitely it's definitely driven by this character, but to me and to you, obviously, the character's interesting enough to hold us through the whole ride. And I definitely say stick to the ending, because the ending is really good.
It just really comes in a full circle.
Yeah, and the supporting cast in this one's really good too. Yeah, there's definitely
a lot of familiar character actors.
There's even people you can spot. You're like,
I know you can spot Shelley Winters at one point, so that's fun.
Yeah, she actually like
she talks lines,
too. Yeah, it's not like in Red River where you're blinking. You can actually spot her.
Rewind, we didn't see her.
No, we're like, I swear that was Shelley. Right? That was Shelley. Red River.
So we want to get to the next one.
Yep.
Okay, so it's High Wall from MGM. With Robert Taylor, Audrey Totter, and again Herbert Marshall.
Definitely got to get to an Audrey Totter.
Oh my god, don't we love her? Don't we love her?
One of the best women of noir.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
There's just something about her.
That
you really genuinely.
I agree, because I think that even when she's plays bad, you're kind of on her side because she's so interesting.
You're like, oh well, I understand.
Yeah, but so High Wall is another psychological type of view, because a lot of
really plays with
it revolves around psychiatry,
mental illness, again the war.
Yep, it plays upon all these aspects, and because the plot is basically Robert Taylor is admitted to a mental institution after the murder of his wife.
This is one of Robert Taylor's best performances.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it's done nearly enough that he's a good actor. Let's just say it. I mean, if you really watch his westerns, that's obvious. But in his film noirs, he's so good too.
Yeah,
he should have made more.
Yeah, I think that I definitely think at this point, late 40s and the 50s.
Yeah, he really found himself.
Yeah, when he like this and Devil's Doorway.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely Devil's Doorway.
Last Time and all that.
Oh, yeah, obviously
that one might be his best.
I think so.
But he's good in this, and also the way this one sort of reveals the mystery is interesting.
It keeps you guessing, and then it gets there, and it's
about
so exciting.
About the halfway point. It tells you who did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but it doesn't. It's proving it.
Yeah, then
which is hard.
Yeah,
nobody's gonna believe Robert Taylor.
Yeah,
everybody thinks he's crazy.
Yeah, and we were recently talking about it. There's a really great scene.
Oh yeah, the reveal.
The reveal is really great, and also after we know who did it, there's a scene in the mental institution where the killer confronts Robert Taylor, and it's so...
I know. Because he feels so... he can't...
He's defenseless.
I know. Because like I said, everybody thinks he's crazy. No one's going to believe him.
Yeah. And this is definitely one of those movies that you read the plot and you're like, I want to see this. It's definitely one of those. Alright, what do we have next?
We have Riff Raff.
Riff Raff,
from the best studio of noir, RKO, with Pat O'Brien. And Anne Jeffries, who I think should have made more noirs too, because she has the voice of a femme fatale. She has a Lauren Bacall voice, and I wanted to hear.
That's true, yeah.
Hear more of it. But this has a lot of fun dialogue. I feel like a lot of the dialogue just makes me laugh from how awesome it is. It's like watching The Big Sleep. How you're like that line was so cool. Like that's what this is.
To me, this one, the first thing I think of when I think of this one is the way it's filmed.
Yeah,
because
the map.
The map, but also like there's a death scene in this that's filmed so interesting. And but yeah, so basically Pat O'Brien is in possession of a map that all these bad guys, Walter Slezak was one of the bad guys, that
he doesn't know he has it. Let's point that out.
Yeah, Pat O'Brien doesn't know he has this map, but all these bad guys want it, and it's right, and we the audience see it.
Yeah, because we know where it is,
and it's right under everyone's nose,
and they don't see it.
But every scene,
it's always filmed so you can see it.
Yeah, so like every time the characters get close to it, like you hold your breath.
Like, oh, they missed it. Okay. Then every time the bad guys are like, no. So it's a lot of fun.
And and again, because Pat doesn't know he has it, you're like, look, oh, it's right there. Come on.
And he plays like really like the loser detective, kind of like a Sam Spade. So
yeah,
that's a lot of fun watching because it really shows a different side of Pat O'Brien. He normally kind of knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
The next one is They Won't Believe Me with Robert Young, Susan Hayward, and Jane Greer.
All right, so
3 great names. Let's say that. And I know Robert Young liked this one. It really put him against type, and he really got to have fun with this part.
Yeah.
And he's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, it might be his best performance.
Yeah.
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 And
I mean, I guess I would have to think more about it, but it's definitely top 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, top 3. Yeah. Again, there are a couple kind of against type performances for him that might,
he's very good at that.
Might go neck and neck with this.
He's very good at playing against type.
Mm-hmm. And I think all 3 women in this movie.
And Rita Johnson.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, she's great in this film. Because I also think...
With a nothing part.
Yeah.
You would think, oh, that's not interesting.
Yeah, like when you hear about the plot, you're like, oh, she's the wife. Oh, what can you do with that? But also, much like Robert Young, Rita was always typecast. So it's interesting to see her in a more sympathetic role.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. But a sympathetic role that's not boring.
She plays like, kind of like the boring leading lady or the other woman.
The other woman.
The boring other woman.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously we have one of the main woman of noir, Jane Greer. Yep.
The first time she was really Jane Greer too.
Well, yeah, you're right.
And obviously Susan Hayward in this one really, along with Deadline at Dawn, really got her name out there.
Yeah, it definitely helped give her a boost.
And then obviously came Smash Up. But she was kind of, people knew her, but she wasn't in anything. None of her parts are really
nothing like
that good.
This is like one of her first like kind of, because she's not unlikable in this film, but she's a little more antagonistic than she was in her films before
like
this.
She often does.
Yeah. In some of her films before this, she was a little antagonistic, but this is where she's like the lead and she gets to do that, and that's obviously she kind of like her
she gets
morally
really
great
sexy,
characters she gets to play a Susan Hayward part, it's one of her first Susan Hayward parts.
It really is Susan Hayward. And an interesting courtroom. The way it's laid out is
the frame.
Okay, the next one is another semi-documentary one, The Street with No Name, with Richard Widmark and Mark Stevens and Barbara Lawrence. And so this is another one that's kind of semi-documentary, but it's like grade A semi-documentary. Goes off the House of 92nd Street.
Yeah, it goes off House of 92nd Street in the same vein of Call Northside 777. Yeah, it's definitely...
But not as well known as the other ones for some reason.
Yeah, which is weird. I guess it's just...
odd because it has star power.
Yeah. I don't know why. I guess maybe this one doesn't play as much. That could be it.
Because it's just as good as the other ones.
Yeah.
And Richard Widmark steals the show, as every critic pointed out at the time. I mean, the other cast is obviously good, but, I mean, you can't really... I mean, he was... When does he not steal the show?
Yeah, I remember we both agreed on this because we both have talked about this. We find Mark Stevens to be underrated.
Oh yeah, and I know
we'll talk about him a little more later.
I know Robert Osborne would often mention that too.
And he's very solid in this film. He definitely plays like a solid, believable lead performance in this.
And Fox actually dropped him after this because of Widmark, he couldn't. They thought he was boring, which is obviously not true. But,
good riddance.
But obviously he did better, I guess, away from it.
Yeah.
I don't think he's really the type of person that really belonged at a studio, because I don't think a studio would have known how to use him. But the film is...
Well, he was one of a couple leading men Fox didn't know how to use. So
yeah, obviously. I mean, every studio has people like that.
Oh yeah.
But it's still a lot of fun, and it's fun to see Barbara Lawrence in this, playing Richard Widmark's wife, who he abuses and yet has a very physical relationship with.
I mean, they're screaming at each other in, like, every scene they're together.
And this film really furthers his kiss of death-like character.
Yeah, but he's not, like, as, like, giggly. He's much more...
No.
Yeah, because it is based off real-life events, so he's much more... he's more grounded, but he's still, he's still creepy and uncomfortable, and he's
billed quite far down. I mean, they're like, oh, let's see if he could really like he stole the last film, let's see if he could do it again. Obviously he did. And the climax with Widmark is fantastic. Done at this like warehouse,
kind
of like a Panic in the Streets sort of climax. Speaking of Widmark. All right, let's go to the next one. It's Follow Me Quietly, again from RKO, with William Lundigan. fantastic. Again, this
quick
is
and to the point too.
This is as underrated as they come. Yeah, again, it's 59 minutes long, and that seems ridiculous, but it gets everything it needs to tell.
Yeah, definitely.
Short time.
And there are just these little scenes that you'll remember, like the climax is memorable. The scene where
the judge,
the
villain is memorable.
The villain is definitely memorable.
And yeah, the climax, I mean, it's very Naked City. It's a very good climax.
Because the villain, his murder pattern is interesting.
Yeah, with the rain.
Yeah, he kills when it rains out. So every time it rains, you know,
you're like, oh my god,
someone's gonna die. Yeah.
And William Lundigan's trying to figure out who it is.
Yep.
So it's and we don't want to spoil too much.
No, because
because it's only 59 minutes long. But this is definitely one to even own, because this is one you could watch again and again, because it's so short, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
and again, it's a quick, interesting little movie.
I know, and it does everything right. There's not a part that you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And very creatively filmed by the great Richard Fleischer. Okay, speaking of which, next one is Armored Car Robbery.
Yep, Fleischer at his Fleischeriest.
With Charles McGraw, William Tallman, and Steve Brody.
All right, so this one is
three noir luminaries. Let's point that out.
I was gonna say this has a noir cast. This movie.
Oh, and Adele Jurgens. Let's not forget her.
Let's not forget Adele.
Amazing death scenes.
The men in this movie didn't forget her.
But yeah, this has amazing death scenes. It's snappy. It's violent. It's short.
Yeah, and it's gritty.
Oh yeah,
it's very gritty.
Yeah, and it takes place in a short amount of time. It keeps, like I said, it's not boring for a second. It just keeps going and going.
That's
and
Fleischer
going.
for you. You know, very
definitely.
quick, very to the point. Yeah, he doesn't mess around.
He's perhaps like one of the all-time greatest noir directors. And today he's best known for directing Conan the Barbarian. It's really sad.
Not 20,000 Leagues.
I would think it'd be
you
that.
Would
actually.
think it'd be that. Yeah.
I would obviously accept
the
that.
good one.
But I think this along with The Narrow Margin, I think is his best film. And both of them obviously have Charles McGraw. He used him to his best, and Charles McGraw could play a good villain, but he's the hero here, and he could play a good hero as well.
But he's like a dirty cop. He's not the old good cop. He's willing to get down in the dirt, and it's interesting.
I mean, he's not as morally gray as Roadblock.
No.
But no, he's a tough cop.
Yeah, he's a little cynical. He's a little mean. Not to the point where he's like
unlikable.
Not to the point where he's like Evan O'Brien and Shield for Murderer, anything like that. But he's a little, he's a little snarky. He's a little, But, I mean, it makes his character memorable.
Yeah.
He's not just the bland cop hunting this guy down. No, he's an actual character, and I think that's interesting.
And it's a lot of chase scenes. It's just a lot of fun. I think anybody who's a fan of noir would love this one and put it on the top of their list.
And it jumps into the robbery very quickly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the robbery's a lot of fun, too.
Yeah. The movie is planning, robbery, fallout. That's the movie.
Yeah. And you still don't know exactly how it's gonna end.
Yeah. And where it's gonna go.
Yeah, like how are they gonna fall? You know that they have to fall. It's a code movie, but how?
Yep.
That's the fun. Okay, so next one is Between Midnight and Dawn with Mark Stevens and Eddie O'Brien.
All right, so this one we joke because we say we enjoyed watching this one a lot, and maybe more than most people, because it does definitely the plot is familiar, but yet, and granted, it could just be because this movie has Evan O'Brien and Mark Stevens in it.
Yeah, we like both of them.
Yeah.
And
Evan O'Brien's one of our favorites.
Yeah, so, if that wasn't obvious from our posts.
I wrote a whole blog about him. So
I think that kind of gave it away. And this film, it's not fair to call it a love triangle because it's not in the conventional sense.
No, it's like she definitely has a relationship with both men in this movie.
She goes on dates with both of them.
Yeah,
it's Gail Storm, by the way. We didn't say that.
And because these guys are inseparable.
Yeah, they're best friends.
Yeah, they're best friends, and they're more like brothers. Yeah, and I know that sounds kind of cliche, but
there's no rivalry at all.
Yeah, they're very like, because normally in this type of movie, when it's like two best friends who are like brothers, and then the love triangle comes and it screws them up.
Yeah, now they're not friends anymore.
Yeah,
not
nothing
here.
like that in this movie.
That would be just so predictable.
And that would distract from the mystery. The mystery, yeah.
And a lot of things in this film, even though it's kind of formulaic, but it's still unpredictable. Yeah. There's a lot of moments where I'm like, oh, didn't see that coming.
And a very violent climax.
Yeah, I was gonna say that climax is real. It's probably the first thing I think of when I think of this movie.
Yeah, and. Yeah, exactly. And like you said, a lot of surprises, and because I think that how the plot on the surface can seem familiar, but then once you watch it, and then the further the film goes, and the way, and like how we said, the way it handles such conventional things as a love triangle and the relationship between these two men, it goes down some paths that you won't see in other films.
And you have three incredibly likable actors.
Oh yeah. And ones you root for. So when things happen in this movie, you feel like, oh well, now it's personal.
Of course. Yeah. Next one is another MGM one.
Another psychological
one. Shadow on the Wall with Zachary Scott and Southern and Gigi Perot.
And Nancy Davis.
Oh, doy. The future first lady. Okay. Well, yeah, and she has a big part in this.
Yeah,
probably the best part she ever had.
Yeah, probably her best part.
That and probably Night Into Morning, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also, this movie has Ann Sothern in a very unconventional part for her.
It's not even spoiling it to say, she kills her sister.
Yeah,
and she's Gigi is the only witness, and she'll do whatever she can to make sure Gigi doesn't tell anyone. She's not sure if what she saw was a bad dream or.
Because all she saw was a shadow on the wall.
And people think Zachary did it.
Yeah.
And so she's not sure. She doesn't even know what's going on. She's a little girl. Nobody's telling her what's going on.
Also, Zachary Scott, he's one of my favorites. So I like how he's not the villain in this one.
No, he often is.
Yeah, I was like, because I feel like...
Not that he doesn't play a great villain.
No, he is obviously an amazing actor and an amazing villain, but it's always good to see him in a unconventional part for him, because
I agree.
Yeah, it's nice to see him mix things up a bit, because a lot of...
He's known as being the cad.
Yeah, he's not the cad in this movie.
No. Nope. He's a father.
Yeah. He's the guy who didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. And, but
there's a lot of moments where we were, like, screaming at the TV, like, oh my god, no! It's like watching, like... the scene in...
Well, it's once you involve children, it becomes...
Yeah, it's like watching Rear Window when he comes back and you're screaming at the TV, no, that's what it's like here.
Or, like,
children are in danger.
Night of the Hunter,
Night of the Hunter, you're screaming, because...
Again, nobody wants to see a child get murdered on screen.
Little Gigi, like, who didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Just was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yep.
Okay. Next one is what we always mention is one of the most underrated noirs of all time, The Sound of Fury, with Frank Lovejoy and Lloyd Bridges.
Also known as Try and Get Me.
Oh yeah, it's known under both titles. It was released as...
And Richard Carlson, you didn't mention.
Oh my god, we love him.
Yeah. our first underrated actor.
But Sound of Fury was released as Sound of Fury, but on DVD it's under Try and Get Me. I recommend buying it if you are up for it. Noirs that are more nitty gritty.
Yeah, this is a tough. Yeah, it's tough, but it's in
so
the best way possible. Yeah, and it definitely. So the film is basically about it has lynch mob mentality, yellow journalism, and the sort of like a Leopold and a Lee Blub. I don't know how you say it. Type of
the
duo.
Guy, the rope guys,
Yeah. And I mean that, I don't mean that they're exactly like that, but they have echoes of them, like, of the character traits that they have. Like, the one is more sympathetic, the other one's more psychotic.
Yeah. Because Frank Lovejoy goes into crime because he's living in poverty, and Lloyd Bridges is the one that pushes him into it because he has money and Frank Lovejoy doesn't. He has a family to support.
Yeah.
So they both get into crime, and the crime gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
Because at first it's just petty little thievery, but it starts. Then it becomes kidnapping.
Yeah. Then it becomes the worst crimes you can commit, and I think that what's also interesting about this film is the fact that most films of this kind, to get its point across, would do it with somebody who's innocent, and then say, oh, look at what this mob did. They've gotten involved with the lynching of innocent people.
These guys are not
innocent. They are guilty.
Like, Frank Lovejoy is more, he still
goes along,
obviously.
With it,
he's the only one that feels guilt about it. And even though he didn't really commit the crime, he was there.
Yeah, and he went along with it. He kept his mouth shut when it happened. And so I think that it helps drive the plot, the message home a little bit, is that lynching's still bad even if the guys are guilty. It's still something you shouldn't do, like this lynch mob mentality.
Yeah. And how the newspaper portrays them as these monsters.
Yeah. And just because, obviously, a newspaper would see a crime as awful as this, like a cold-blooded crime.
But they build it up to get to sell more papers.
Yeah, exactly, to sell more papers, and it works. But but it's a horrible crime, so you would naturally portray it like in a sensationalist type of way. Like, look at what these guys did. They, cold-blooded murder type of thing. But it's but yeah, it portrays both sides as wrong, and I think. Yeah. But it also shows the
human side of both.
Exactly. Like, you see where both sides are coming from. You see, but yet they both learn a lesson.
You see reporter Richard Carlson at his home. You see criminal Frank Lovejoy in his.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're very different lives.
And yet they're both human, and
they both make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
The next one is Union Station with William Holden and Nancy Olson.
Barry Fitzgerald.
Old boy, yeah. I forgot that. My bad. Guy from the Naked City, you think? Yeah. Well,
one of the big noirs.
This is actually very Naked City-esque.
Yeah, it is. And while aspects of the film do date, it is this one is pretty scary.
Yeah, I was very scared watching this. Me too. Lyle Betker plays the villain.
And he is scary.
He is really scary.
Yeah.
Because he kidnaps a blind girl.
Yeah.
And
played by Aileen Roberts.
Yeah, who's wonderful, like always. And you just are terrified for her. Because she doesn't know what's going on. She's blind. And they're pushing her around. It doesn't hide a lot of things.
There's the scene where he says, like, I don't understand why anyone would pay to get her back. And it's like, oh yeah, how dare she be terrified for her life.
Yeah. How dare her family love her. And it's like, and Nancy Olson works for the family, and she's trying to figure out, and she does a bit of sleuthing herself. She's not like she's not the girl on the side screaming. No,
and she's not stupid. She doesn't do anything that would get her in danger.
No.
She does some sleuthing, but she's smart about it. Yeah. She doesn't go to
like a real person would
be. Exactly. Like, when I was watching it, I'm like, no, that's how a real person would do.
That's what I would do, I think.
Like, when it looks like there's a part in the movie when she finds out the license plate number of the villains, and the way she does it, and she realizes that the guys are the villains and none of the cops are around, and so she writes down the license plate number, and when it looks like they might be thinking, oh, is somebody watching us, she walks into the building next door, like, it looks like she's just walking into the building, like, oh, I live in this building.
I was seriously saying, good girl.
Me too. Me too. I was like, that is what any human being would do. She wouldn't like confront them. She wouldn't think, oh god, what do I do?
Yeah, she doesn't run away. Like,
no.
Oh my god,
they saw me. No, she does what any normal person in this situation would do. And for so many of these movies where they portray women
it's like the horror movie cliche.
Yeah, like
she runs upstairs instead of outside.
Yeah, exactly. Where for some reason women in dangerous situations don't have a brain, and it's like, but no, in this one she knows what she's doing, and I appreciated that more than I can say.
And it's always fun seeing William Holden and Nancy Olson together.
Oh yeah, and their relationship is amusing in this.
It's cute.
Yeah, like there's a scene where he goes over to her apartment where she lives with her mom, and it's funny. Yeah. Like, I was laughing.
Next one is Cry Danger with Dick Powell and Rhonda Fleming.
Richard Erdman.
A lot of fun.
Jean Porter. May she rest in peace.
Oh yeah, I know. I think this is probably her best role. She's a lot of fun.
It is her best role, I would say.
She has a lot of great lines, and she and Richard Erdman played off each other.
Yeah, they are fun in this. Yeah. Richard Erdman has one of his best parts in this. I think so. Yeah. And maybe his best part, like in a film at this time.
He cracked me up, like just the lines, and just the way he flirts with Jean Porter. Like he one point, like they move into this really awful little mobile home, and he says, and Dick Powell was like, well, aren't you glad you're close to Jean Porter? And he's like, well, I would want to take her away from this, not move in with her. And that made me crack up, just the way he said it. And obviously the best with dialogue, Dick Powell. And there's this Russian roulette scene with William Conrad.
Yeah, one of the notable film noir heavies.
Yeah, and it's just so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. He is so
Dick Powell does it.
Yeah, Dick Powell is just so cool.
And then when he's about to leave William Conrad, he turns around and slaps him because he can, and it's so awesome.
Also, what's so interesting about this is so many film noirs, they'll portray the gritty side, but they'll also portray like this sort of high class side.
Yeah,
like do the two different. This one is 10 times grittier than I mean, with the world it portrays, because it's a dump. This world that they occupy.
They live in this trailer. It's the worst looking trailer you can possibly imagine.
It's like,
and the trailers are like 5 feet long.
Yeah, exactly. And and the doors don't shut all the way, and it's like
dirty.
They're dirty.
But it's
real, and it's real.
Yeah, it is. It is.
You're like, obviously, like in the dirty type of world these people would occupy, it would look something like this,
like the place where you don't think anyone would ever want to live.
Yeah, but to get the job done, these guys are willing to live there.
So the next one is The Enforcer, and despite having Humphrey Bogart in it, this is incredibly underrated.
Yeah, it's the story of Murder Inc. slightly disguised. Incorporated.
One of the reasons why it's like so underrated is there isn't any sex. Like there's no leading ladies. No. It's just trying to solve a mystery.
And it's an interesting mystery.
I know.
This movie has a twist in it that I did not see coming.
I know. Like there's like when it dawned on me, I seriously like went like,
yeah.
And a lot of
like everything you thought you knew.
Yeah.
Nope. It kind of does a 180 on you.
A lot of great character actors. Zero Mostel at some of his most fun.
Everett Sloane as the villain. Yeah.
And he always plays great villains, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
So, and I don't want to like reveal anything, but
it's
like incredibly unpredictable.
Yeah. This is and it opens.
I was gonna say the opening.
Well, with Ted De Corsia is the witness that has to they're like the one guy that can put the mob behind bars, and yet they kill him. And so they're like, well,
even
now
though they take every single precaution they could
possible precaution, you're like, how could anyone ever get to this guy?
Like, to reference like a later movie, it's kind of like Traffic, where they're trying to protect Miguel Ferrer, and it's useless. They still get around him, and that's what it reminded me of. It's very ahead of its time,
and it's because also you're like, well, now you have to solve the mystery because there's no other way you're gonna get this guy, and you have to do it in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely
and what witnesses will be willing to testify against them, because
everyone's afraid of this guy. Yeah, it's definitely one that you can't reveal too much, because then you're going into dangerous territory.
Quietly, and you don't want to reveal too much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or High Wall, I don't want to reveal too much.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is a remake, an American remake, M, with David Wayne.
All right. So while this one, obviously, the Fritz Lang one will always be the classic, but the funny thing is, if you didn't know about this film, and I remember when I first heard that M was remade, and I was like, how can you possibly remake that movie? Like, especially in America, like, how can you do that? Like,
they do it already.
During the production code and all that, but no, they do it. But I think what works about this, and I've mentioned this, I said it in the blog, I've said it takes enough liberties, but it also keeps enough similar.
It feels like a completely different movie.
No,
but
it's not just copying.
It's not in the least. I mean, it's
because then there would be no point in it existing.
It's still incredibly well filmed by Joseph Lucy, and a lot of people in this movie were blacklisted.
Yeah,
because there's Howard De Silva, Luther Adler, and obviously Lucy.
Yep.
So it's almost it's so controversial in so many ways, not just the plot, but I guess the people in it as well.
Yeah.
And David Wayne gives one of his best performances. And a lot of people who study films always point out that David Wayne is one of the greatest actors of the time. And a method actor that's not pretentious.
Yeah.
Really not. And this is really...
Yeah, he's really... And you would think that... And that's not a reason
not
why...
Not all like Peter Lorre,
yeah,
too.
That's not a reason why you would be afraid about there being a remake of it, because you're like, oh, well, Peter Lorre is so iconic in M. But, he's not doing Peter Lorre here. No. He's doing a completely different
He's doing David Wayne.
Yeah, he's doing a completely different performance, and that's because the way they portray the character is slightly different.
They actually go into his history because this film wanted to really spotlight mental illness. It wanted you to know why he's doing this like early, like in the 31M it's like a shocker when you find out why he does it, but here it really shows you first, and then so you can feel bad for him when the bad stuff happens.
Like whereas in
it's not a plot twist like in the Lang one,
and in the Lang one when you get to the trial, you know, when you realize oh god, you know, like when he's going into detail about, you know, why he does what he does, and you're like, wow, that's something. But in this one, you see it through the whole thing of why he's doing what he's doing.
You see his torture,
the mental anguish he goes through, and that
he hates himself. And
the whole movie, and much like how the original kind of does this sort of parallel between you know, crime that you can't help and crime that you do by choice, like what a lot of those
like the criminals do, like is one by choice. This is one he really cannot help.
And so this movie makes parallels to how he can't help it. Luther Adler's character is a drunk, and how he can't help but drink. He's like, you can't help drinking, I can't help killing, you know.
He Luther Adler is always a memorable presence in noirs.
Definitely.
Because it was really a genre he made a lot, and he didn't make too many movies, but the ones he made are pretty good.
Yeah, we'll get to another one of his in a second.
Okay, so next one is The Blue Gardenia with Anne Baxter, Richard Conte, one of our favorites, and Raymond Burr. Oh wait, and Southern.
Yeah, this is a fun one.
Yeah, this one is Fritz Lang.
Yeah, this
we were just talking about.
Yeah. Well, most of Fritz Lang's movies are on everyone's radar. Yeah. This one isn't.
For some reason.
Yeah, it's not. Well, because I remember on Noir Alley, Eddie Muller saying this is one that people either hold really high or they don't. Yeah. They're not crazy about it. But
Fritz Lang himself liked it.
Yeah. To me, this movie's very agreeable. I don't know why you wouldn't be into this one.
I know.
But to each his own, I guess. But, yeah.
But there's really, I don't see what there is to dislike. I don't know why you would be like, oh, this movie's so bad. I don't see what it is.
Well, no one thinks it's bad.
No, but I mean, but there's really no, I didn't have any problem with it.
No, neither did I. And I think
maybe because I'm a blind Richard Conte fan.
Me too, yeah. But Anne Baxter is excellent in this movie.
When is she not?
that is true. She's good in everything. But
yeah, she's great.
Because throughout the whole movie, you're on her side. You know, you're like, because you see the personal struggle she's going through. Like, well, should I tell anybody? But like, I don't want to. And you're like, yeah, I see where you're coming from.
And Raymond Burr plays an interesting part, like along with Crime of Passion. And
Bianca always has to mention Raymond Burr.
I'm a big Perry Mason fan, by the way, and he plays a sexual predator here.
That's what he is.
Yeah.
Today he would be considered.
He lures women, and he just seduces them and leaves them, and he faces a dire consequence of it.
Yep. You know, what goes around comes around.
Exactly. But you don't know if Anne Baxter killed him or not. That's the mystery. And Richard Conte is the reporter trying to figure it out. And then he meets Anne Baxter, and there's a lot of sexual tension, rooting for it.
And Southern comes with the wisecracks.
Of course, wisecrack extraordinaire and Southern.
She can definitely lay down a line.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like this is one that I just enjoyed watching. I definitely...
Directed with such flair.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, and
cool shadows.
One of my favorite singers is in it, Nat King Cole. He sings the title song.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun. You don't really get to see a lot of guest stars in film noirs. You see them in other films, and not film noirs. Okay, next one is Cry Vengeance with Mark Stevens, which he also directed.
And it's an impressively directed film.
It's a doozy of a film. It's filmed on location in Alaska, and it's beautifully shot.
Oh,
beautifully shot.
And Mark Stevens is very against type in this film. This is the
he's never been better.
I'm bummed 20th Century Fox did not discover this side of Mark Stevens.
I know. Put this character in Richard Widmark in a film again, and you really have something.
Oh yeah, definitely. And he puts on this like Charles McGraw type of gravel voice in it, and
he doesn't look like or talk like Mark Stevens.
But this is also one where the character has bad intentions, but you see where he's coming from, because
it's a vengeance story, like the title would suggest.
But you definitely are like, well, yeah, I'd be pissed off too. But and Skip Homier as a villain.
Oh my god, he's like excellent. He's so scary too. It's like Lyle Becker.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the great classic film villains. It doesn't get said enough, but like every time he plays a villain, you remember him.
It's a lot of fun. And Joan Voss plays his mom, and she's probably never been better too, and you feel awful for her. Yeah. And she like has this voice like Jan Sterling, like, oh my god. Yeah.
And they're like always like sort of bickering at each other. And I always remember there's a scene in the film where I think it's the person who works at the airport, is saying something to Skip Homier, like telling him what he can or can't do, and Skip Homier just says to him, "Oh, shut up." I do what I want. And the climax is good too.
Oh yeah,
interesting, and again on location, so it looks real nice.
Unpredictable.
Yeah,
good one.
Yep.
Next one is one that features a lot of great noir actors. Crash Out with Arthur Kennedy, one of our favorites. Yeah. William Bendix, William Tallman, Luther Adler, playing an interesting character like always.
Gene Evans and Marshall Thompson.
Yep. Great cast.
That is one hell of a cast.
I know. And they're all the guys that escape, and you just follow them along the way as each of them gets picked off one by one by one. And I think William Tallman's at his best here.
I think what's so interesting about this film is that all the characters are interesting.
Yeah.
All of them have like interesting stories, interesting backstories, and interesting characters, because a lot of them are, you don't like a lot of them.
There's definitely some you want to make it out and some you don't.
Yeah,
there's actually two you only want to make it out. I won't say who. But William Tallman, this and The Hitchhiker are his best performances.
Yeah, Tallman's character is very interesting in this. He's basically the guy who does all of William Bendix's dirty work. Yeah. Every time William Bendix tells him to do something, he does it.
And he claims to have found religion in prison, so he's really conflicted. And he's obviously has mental problems.
Yeah,
like he's The Hitchhiker.
Yeah, he's definitely, like, I feel like today he would be put in an asylum, not in a prison. And also, Arthur Kennedy's character, very interesting, because we can't not talk about Arthur Kennedy. Another guy I wrote a whole blog to based on my undying love for. And he just, because again, he's morally gray, but he's also, he's probably the most likable character in this movie.
I said him and someone else.
Yeah. And he's also like the only one who's not like a lifer there.
Yeah.
He just sort of came
like,
along.
Why did you come along? Yeah. So there's a lot of, so why did he come along? It's kind of the whole thing.
Yep.
Okay. So the next one is Shack Out on 101. This is an interesting one with Lee Marvin, Terry Moore, Frank Lovejoy, Kenya Wynn, Whit Bissell.
I feel like this one might be a bit polarizing, because it's one that it's definitely is what it is, but it's so fun that, it's one of those movies.
It's described as a trash classic.
Yeah, Leonard Maltin describes it as that, and yeah, it's one that it's definitely trashy. It's definitely over the top, but it is so entertaining.
And that dialogue, I could like it. There's not really a lot of plot. It's really them bickering, but it's so entertaining. Like, I just wanted to sit back and listen to them.
It almost feels like the plot is an afterthought. They're like, we'll just throw this in as an excuse, but it's an excuse to basically just have all these characters play off each other.
And they do so well. Whit Bissell plays an interesting character.
Whit Bissell plays one of his most interesting characters in this film. He's and he plays. Should we say what he plays?
Yeah, go ahead.
So he's basically a war veteran who basically
post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, and who's super squeamish.
He can't even go fishing.
No, because he won't. He's just afraid to kill anything. It's an interesting character, and what's also interesting with this movie is all these actors have a lot of screen time. Yeah. It's not like, Whit Bissell's in one scene and then he's gone. No, he has.
It develops all of them. Yeah. And this is one of the first big roles, really, for Lee Marvin, who's one of my favorite actors. And he plays a character called Slob. He plays Slob, and
he's Slob.
I know exactly. he knows that he just becomes that character, and oh boy, is it fun.
It's definitely one that
it's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone,
but we like it.
Yeah, I think if you can get into the like, because the movie seems to be pretty self-aware of what it is. If you can get into that, then you're gonna have fun. I'd say just forget the plot and sit back and
listen to the dialogue and watch the performances, and you'll have fun.
Yeah, it's kind of a Red Scare movie, but not really.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like it's making fun of the Red Scare
That's what
movies.
It feels like. It feels like it's like, oh, aren't these movies ridiculous?
Yeah.
Like, it almost feels like the writer wrote it to, like, basically say, here, Hewitt, here, shove this up your ass. Like, we'll give you what you want, but we'll be making fun of you the whole time.
We're gonna have characters like Slob in
this. Yeah. Oh boy.
And so the final one we're going to be talking about is The Killer is Loose, with Joseph Cotten, Rhonda Fleming, and Wendell Corey at his all-time best.
And Wendell Corey makes this movie.
Yeah, this is
his
the
movie.
reason. This is the reason why we put it on here. I think because of Wendell Corey. And I think he's underrated in general. I think anybody who sees Desert Fury knows he's a great actor, especially in noir. And he's in a lot of great noir, like The Foul and Thelma and Jordan. But this is really him at his best.
I think that Wendell Corey spends so much of his career playing, and you always like him because he always plays these agreeable characters, and I mean that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, and he always is agreeable. But this is one.
But when he gets to play a villain,
he plays. Leonard Maltin said it best in his review that he's both scary and pathetic. Yeah, because that is so true. He's scary because you're generally frightened of him, but at the same time, he's like.
He's sad. Yeah. He's a sad little man.
He's really sad. And
he wears these big glasses, and he worked at a bank, and then he committed a crime, and he went to jail, and Joseph Cotten, the cop, accidentally killed his wife.
Yeah, while they were shooting it out,
and so he sees that Joseph Cotten's married to Rhonda Fleming. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get revenge. I'm gonna kill you. Yeah, I'm gonna kill your wife. Yeah. So then when he escapes, you're like, oh my God, what's he gonna do? And let's just say Rhonda Fleming isn't the only one he's torturing in this.
Yeah. It's it also, the scene where his wife died is so
it's sad.
It's sad because you feel bad for him, but at the same time, he rubbed you the wrong way.
What was your wife doing there?
Yeah, why were you shooting when your wife was in the room?
And also, the police were told that nobody else was in there but him. So.
Yeah. And this one's also short. It's quick and to the point. It's not. I want to say it's 76 minutes or it's around there. And Bud did this one, but Bocher,
one of the all-time great Western directors.
And he's definitely, his Westerns were the same way, quick to the point.
Oh yeah. He never went over time.
Yeah, he was definitely, and his Westerns usually had that, like, enjoyable villain to watch. The villain that was just so much fun to watch. And this is one of those movies, but it's a noir.
And it's violent for their time, too. Not in a gruesome way.
No. It never takes anything too
None
far.
of these noirs do. No. But, yeah, this one is still violent for the time.
Yeah. It's also what's insinuated.
Yeah, exactly. You don't see things, but and also, it's the fear of what's going to happen.
Yeah. This one definitely has moments that you're going to be on the edge of your seat.
Because you don't know, because this guy's crazy. You don't know what he's going to do. You don't know how he's going to, what he plans, how he's planning to kill.
And he's also so focused.
I know. Like, nothing's going to stop him. He's not afraid of anything.
Nope. Like, it's all or nothing type of thing.
Yeah, like, he doesn't care what happens to him as long as he gets Rhonda.
Yep. He just wants his revenge.
Yeah. great revenge movie where you're against the person getting revenge. It's the opposite of Cry Vengeance.
It's definitely it should be one of the famous villainous noir performances,
and it's truly one of the great one of the last noirs that's really great. Because after this, this is 56. You only had 2 more years of good noir, and even 59 had Odds Against Tomorrow and The Trap. I mean, it had some good ones.
Yeah, 58 had Touch of Evil.
Yeah, exactly. There's 2 good ones in 59, and then 58 had The Touch of Evil, which is like kind of the official end of it. Yeah. So this is really one of the last. Essential.
Yeah, there were less around this time, and there were less standouts.
Yeah, a lot more underrated ones. That's the fun of it, but less standouts.
Yeah. All right. So, anything else you want to say? Anything that you recommended on TCM that's playing this weekend?
Oh, gee, did I? I don't remember.
If you get bored, you need to watch a movie.
Let's look up the blog.
we need to look it up.
We recommend movies every week. We don't always remember exactly what they were,
especially
every week.
What time they're coming on and what day they're coming on.
We don't have photographic memories. We'd like to, but.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, but then I'd remember all the bad movies I've seen in
I
vivid detail. Yeah. I write about them, so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I saw them too. I saw Sex Kittens Go to College too.
All right, I don't see any playing this weekend.
Okay, so see you next time. See you next Friday.
We don't know what we're going to be talking about yet.
Yeah, we'll be discussing that later. So it's a surprise to all of us.
Maybe we won't know until Friday.
Until then, yeah.
All right, see ya.